All right, so I think we're live. Second try. So, well, computer problems. I still haven't resolved. So, yeah, a bit difficult to get this stuff done. So, I do want to open the actual video and see if I can, go to the watch page, and then I'll see the chat thing because I can't see that from the live thing, which really doesn't make much sense. So we'll see if that's working. It says stand by, but that doesn't mean anything. And we'll wait for the video to start just to be sure that we don't fuck something up. There we go. Really doesn't mean much. Now I should be able to hit that pause button, and now I should be able to open the Hangout room. I can see the chat thing, and that makes sense. And so now we'll go to. So the link should be in the description. So check that. Well, whatever. You know the game, so you let me know if it's not there, but it's there. So I put it there, so it's there. One of these facts that's probably a fact. All right, so anyway, someone left a comment on the website, and it's just this generic complaint about somehow I'm supposed to be doing this all very differently, and that I'm out of bounds in terms of something I've done or said, and I just find that not defendable. And he doesn't defend it with an argument, he just makes the same old accusations. That somehow I'm wrong. I just must be, because obviously other people are right and I'm wrong, or something like that. All right, so you really think you outsmarted all the major scientists of the last 80 years or so. So the line I just gave in the other room that I had to get rid of was something like, I didn't outsmart them, I just out-undumbed them, or unfucked-hearted them, or unsilly mistaked them, or some statement regarding the fact that they just kept falling for stuff. The physics just kept, convicting without evidence, and they just went on a convicting rampage in terms of saying what the truth was. They wanted particle wave duality. They wanted to resolve this thing. So first they resolved it by saying, well, let's try to make it a wave, and they seem to be trying, and then settled on some kind of ludicrous duality thing. And I'm just saying that, I could just say, I can just mention all these different things that physics concluded in the last 100 years, and just say, shouldn't they all have looked at each other and said, well, that's an interesting idea, but maybe we ought to wait till that's got a little more verification or a little extra evidence, because that's kind of weird and bold and strange. Photons are reading our minds. Well, yeah, that seems really crazy. But the fact that they're splitting in two and interfering with themselves, and they have radar and they can see in the future and they can do that, really just doesn't go with this whole idea that what happens in most of physics is, traditionally, things get simpler as they get smaller, not more complicated. They don't get more tools, they get less tools. They don't get more attributes, they get fewer attributes. So maybe we should have a theory that's consistent with that kind of idea, because that almost seems like a rule. Not quite a rule, but sort of is kind of a rule, that things don't get more complicated as you get smaller. They get simpler. They get fewer capacity. Let's just say less possibilities, not more possibilities. That kind of thing. So, so I guess, I didn't outsmart them, but I out-unstupided them. I didn't do, I'm smart enough not to be stupid, not to convict on no evidence, to know that the trial actually has to be a trial, and then I guess just to know that you really have to get the foundation right if you're going to get anything on top of it that means anything, that's likely to be right. You're likely not going to get right answers standing on a Eiffel Tower, a crooked foundation. This isn't likely. So, and I could go down the list of all the things that they did wrong. So anyway, the next sentence. Do you really think modern physics is just a big conspiracy played by eggheads who wanted to seem as intelligent towards chicks and get laid that way? Conspiracy, I've never argued for a conspiracy. The conspiracy is like any kind of religion. You could say, well, you think it's a conspiracy that these Catholics are all Pope and they're all trying to contrive this God thing to control people and blah, 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 blah. No, I think they want simple answers, and they don't want to do the work of finding the truth. So, frankly, and they like the story. They like that there's this idea of a God and he's going to force us to be moral, and that way they don't have to make a logical argument for being an ethical or a decent person. They can just say, God says so, and if you don't do it, you're going to get punished. And it just takes the burden away of having to explain why being decent is the reasonable thing to do. And just, they're just convenient. So we're back to convenient truths, the inconvenient truth, the idea that if a truth is inconvenient, they run from it. And physics, in a sense, I think, was a hierarchy of people that were made too godlike. And so you had this limited number of people. Their imagination was the only imagination listening to. And their imagination was, frankly, kind of phantasmagorical and silly. They wanted the universe to be all quantum-y interesting. They didn't like the idea of silly particles bouncing around. They didn't like determinism. They didn't like the whole idea of being part of a mechanism, a machine that was just grinding through time, eating us up in the process. So they wanted something that gave some hope of your singularities and your la 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 la. They like things, more interesting things to play with, I guess, too, as conceptions. They didn't like this, oh, the universe is just a bunch of staticky, like galaxies and suns exploding and blah, 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 and it's not very interesting. So they wanted things that made it more interesting, I think. You really think that all of those major scientists, Nobel laureates, university deans, and professors, Ivy League scholars are just wrong, 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 and that you somehow are right, right, right? Well, I've demonstrated that. So let's, we go through the list. I'm just asking you. I mean, half my burden in arguing a competing theory, okay, even like at trial, there's two. One theory is, okay, I murdered somebody. My theory is I didn't, and I have to explain why I didn't, or how you can know I didn't. Well, the first thing you do is you attack their theory. You say, first, well, look, they have a theory that I did it because I have long hair. Well, I don't know. It's so, and there's a 0.04% higher probability that men with long hair are criminals. And well, gee, that's sort of unfair. You're going to convict on that. I mean, that's kind of empty. But it goes even worse than that. So at this trial, you've got this evidence of what reality is. And so you've got this major thing, the Young experiment. And this idea that they somehow proved, okay, that light is a wave with that experiment. And I'm saying that fundamental to this problem is the idea that it's not, So the idea also is that it was an inconceivable notion anyway. Even just saying to each other, photons are waves, they should be able to say to, like the other scientists should say, well, how do I even conceive this wave? There's a wave in a non-medium that doesn't spread, except when it sees a slit or something, then it spreads out all over the place. And then it does infinite spreading, like Huygens. So as soon as somebody said Huygens, Okay, because that's related to the Young experiment. Okay, a principle you only apply in special circumstances where the math doesn't work. Now, isn't that sort of the definition of God of the gap fudge? When you create a principle that's only applied in the circumstance where your math doesn't work, that sounds like God of the gap's fudge. So just imagine the scenario. I have two single slit experiments. I have them 10 inches apart. Well, now they're Huygensing. Now, if I bring the two single slit experiments closer and closer, all of a sudden there's some point where to do their math, they're going to say, stop Huygensing. Don't do that Huygens crap anymore because that fucks the math. Because then we end up with 4 waves interfering with each other instead of 2. So don't do that. That won't work. That principle is invalid. You don't. Now you're telling me, okay, I'm just sitting here saying there's absolutely nothing wrong with my critique. That critique I just gave of what they've done is absolutely valid. That's exactly the ludicrous paradox they've created with this principle, this Huygens principle. That's their ludicrous paradox. They created it. They created this nonsensical solution to the mathematical problem, and it can't be true because it can't be applied consistently. It's absolutely, you should be able to agree that this is almost getting way too silly. I mean, you've already made all these presumptions. To add the cherry presumption on top that somehow photons know when there's 2 slits and when there's 1 slit, and they know to Huygens when there's 1, and they know to not Huygens when there's 2, is really getting freaking silly. Isn't there some point where I can just say, that's too fucking silly? So, whose bad is it, asshole? You're saying I'm somehow wrong, number one, for pointing out the paradox. I'm wrong for saying the paradox is obvious. I'm wrong for saying this should be a higher standard than coming to court with paradoxical nonsense, coming to court with an argument that I can unravel with almost no effort to show you why that can't be the truth. And it just can't be the truth. All right, so the whole entire Young phenomenon, that is really the cornerstone of quantum mechanics, photon, unreality, blah, 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 blah. All of this mystical crap comes out of this fucking experiment. And this fucking experiment with the most reliable, guaranteed mathematics in the history of mankind. This math is so perfect, it's never been wrong. And I've shown that it's completely broken. They need fudge to fix it in this case. And even when they're not using fudge, when they're using 2-slit mathematics, their mathematics has nothing almost to do with the result of the experiment. Their math doesn't do anything to properly identify the intensity of the bands. They do diminish in intensity. They rebound. There's a double interference pattern in the 2-slit experiment that the math doesn't show at all. The math predicts single bars of the equal intensity. It's silly to argue that this is great math. It's clearly deficient math. And I'm saying to come to court with an argument as bad as that, whose fault is that? So that's the Young experiment, a fundamental feature. The second one was Einstein's, magical gravitational lensing, made possible. Okay, Einstein didn't invent the idea of gravitational lensing. He invented the idea of time dilation, which permitted lensing to be mathematically possible around our own sun. So, do I really? I can go through the short list of all the flaws in that evidence. The fundamental premise of science: experiments must be repeatable. Okay, they've never repeated the Edinburgh experiment successfully. They now have a Hubble telescope that can do the experiment every day, and for some reason we don't have it doing it every day. because for some reason, all of a sudden, it doesn't work. I don't think is their problem. The mathematics is not true. You can't lens with the sun. And now what do you have? You have gravitational lensing in galaxies that they say they've got proof of it. And why do they know they have proof of it? Because it proves dark matter. So you tell me, you come to court with an argument that's so circular, right? It must have been the tire people who killed OJ's wife. You know, they put a tire around her and stuff and did all that weird shit, set her on fire and all that crap. But they obviously put the fire out and took away the tire. So it's like proof that they must have done it because the tire's not there. So they must have done it because they obviously took the tire with them after they did it or something, right? I mean, it's this kind of illogic, self-serving. Somehow now these goofy pictures of gravitational lensing that don't match the mathematics have proven that dark matter is real because now it fixes the math. But it didn't fix the math. It was that the dark matter this is the proof that there's dark matter, because the only reason why the math didn't work is because obviously we didn't understand that dark matter existed. I mean, this is horrible evidence. I mean, it's so putridly bad that the fact that these scientists, these Nobel laureates, these deans of universities, the rest of them, that it didn't occur to them to say, slow down, everybody, just slow the fuck down, all right? We got photons reading minds. We've got glibbity-globbity images of freaking blobs on our damn pictures from the 15 billion years old light, and you're sitting there jumping to these wild conclusions. You want to slow down for a second? I mean, everything you're saying just doesn't make any logical sense. I mean, if a galaxy is faced this way and light's going this way by it, there's a very small amount of time it's in the gravity. I can figure that out. I'm an idiot and I can figure that out. This distance is really short, where if the galaxy is this way, holy fuck, the time it's in the gravity is huge. So why aren't all the gravitational lensing images of galaxies this way? Oh, because that's not as pretty. That doesn't look as cool. You can't see the galaxy then. It's just a line with a blob next to it. Oh, that's not as pretty. Come on, this is ludicrous evidence to go to court with. All right. So, yes, I'm right. They're wrong. And I think I can prove first, I can do the proving they're right, they're wrong, that their assumptions are critically flawed, that gravity can be, that gravity is matter, and that light is matter, and that it can be affected by gravity. This gravity only affects matter, not energy. And, but it's fundamental to understanding. And this whole particle wave duality, which is an ironic duality when you really think about it, because when they were imagining photons as particles, they weren't really doing it very well, because obviously you wouldn't call it a photon then. See, because Einstein came up with that word. I'm just saying it's kind of a bogus for Einstein to come up with this word photon for a particle, because then you'd have to say the particle was as long as the wavelength. That's a bizarrely shaped particle, right? I mean, Einstein knew that radio waves were really long. Okay, really long distance between the beginning and end of the photon event. And so you'd have to argue that the photon was miles long. And that doesn't sound like a particle. So he didn't, but if you're not going to, and so if you realize them as particles, you have to recognize, oh, wait a minute, it can't be called a photon because it has to be two of them for there to be a frequency. There has to be a first one, and then the next one defines the length of the frequency of the period of their arrival. And it's like that was never really thought through, because you would never call something a ton if you needed two of them to make the energy quanta. You can't have the energy quanta of a photon without you at least having two of the particles in a particle theory. So it's like even their particle theory was so unmature, it was so underdeveloped, that no wonder why they couldn't make it work, because they weren't even thinking about it properly. All right, dude, yeah, fuck you. I mean, really, just fuck you, pedophile. Is that what a petty? Okay, I'll call you petty. Do you know how preposterous that sounds to someone like me? Oh, you, who actually was part of the scientific establishment for a few months. A few months? You were part of the scientific establishment for a few months? I don't even know what that means. You what, you wash their dishes? You worked in the kitchen for a few months at MIT? What does that mean? A few months. You moved on to something more important? Yeah. What? A greeter at Home Depot? What the, what the hell is that crap? But if it's true, why can't you make a real argument? I mean, if you know something about physics, why can't you defend Huygens as a principle? Do you think that's a principle? A principle that includes, look, I've heard MIT professors, right? It's an MIT professor using the word infinite number. So this is the magic of photons, right? That in no time, it takes no time for the photons to do this, but in no time at all, it creates an infinite thing, okay, which, number one, the whole complete infinite thing has to happen in a limited amount of time. So that's right there. Physics already is saying, I don't think you can do infinite in no time. That doesn't make much sense, to do an infinite amount of stuff in absolutely no time. But just the idea, an infinite number of little mini waves. Now, an MIT professor shouldn't be saying something like infinite, right? I mean, that's just kind of, I mean, come on, please. All right. So for a few months in physics, we learned in the first lesson at university. So you were part of the scientific establishment for a few months. I don't, that, like I said, I don't know what that, I think that just means what? You went to college, you took a physics course, you flunked out. In physics, we learn in the first lesson at university that everything you say has to be backed up by actual or a proposed experiment that can falsify your claims. This idea of falsifying a claim is just so silly. What you want to do is prove something with evidence. Does anybody call it falsifying a claim when you go to court? No, it's called proof. It's like making an argument that establishes a proof. This falsify my claim crap, what is that? It's just, it's doing it backwards. How can I propose an experiment to prove that I could propose an experiment, create an artificial fake thing called dark matter and fix the lensing experiments. Yes, now you've falsified my theory that light isn't moved by gravity. I propose the experiment that you look at the universe, find absolutely very little lensing happening when there should be zillions of tons of it. Oh yeah, no, I'm falsifying their theory. But see, falsifying their theory falsifies my theory, right? Because their theory is verified because they created dark matter to fix all the problems. They create dark matter, which doesn't just mean that it's not lit up matter. No, to make it work, they have to make it invisible matter. It has a property that no matter has, which it doesn't reflect any light at all, ever. So they really turned it into something magically delicious. So anyway, where did Einstein create an experiment to falsify his claims of the existence of bent space and time? Where's that experiment? I mean, it's pretty hard to do, right? They're all thought experiments. They're all useless experiments where he says somebody can go the speed of light, and if they go the speed of light, they'll see Mary Poppins fly by on her umbrella. Well, how does that prove anything, right? He's saying that Mary Poppins will fly by if you go the speed of light. How do I prove that? A piece of shit. Is there some way that can happen? No. So it's a useless thought experiment with a useless claims are tied to it. People have all these claims about what happens when you go approach the speed of light. Einstein says you get so massive that you can't be moved forward. No, the truth is you become so invisible you can't be pushed forward. There's so little of you left that's not going the direction you're going that there's nothing to push on. So any force would have to be preposterously huge because it can't find anything to hit. That's the truth of it. If I want to collect photons from a light and I make a sieve that's got so many holes in it, it becomes impossible to collect the photons because the net is bigger than the photon. That's the problem with moving this matter the speed of light. It's not that it gets too massive, it's that it gets too invisible. You can't hit it anymore. You can't push it with anything. So, I mean, how do I falsify Einstein's claim? How do I falsify the claim I just made? You can't, because we can't move matter the speed of light, not even 1/10 of the speed of light, not even 1/100th of the speed of light. We can't get anywhere close to that number. All right, that is if we have two theories with the same amount of explanatory content. Well, that right there is another, this is terminology a scientist would use, explanatory content. God has explanatory content. It's absolute bullshit. So what's the same amount of explanatory content? That is just such a stupid way to say it. Unicorn theory is explanatory content. The Goldilocks and the Three Bears is explanatory content. It's just all fucking bullshit, completely made up nonsense. We take the one with the fewer assumptions. Wow, isn't that interesting? And how do you measure the assumptions? And how do you measure the importance of the assumptions? So you count the number of assumptions rather than realize the number of the assumptions, which is probably you count the number of assumptions instead of recognizing the criticalness or the importance of certain assumptions. Certain assumptions are gigantically critical. It's not about the number of them. It's about how big they are as boners, which brings us automatically to a manifold of symmetries playing this symphony in modern theoretical physics. What a big meaningless ball of jujubes that was. That your results have to be repeatable and be verified by other parties. So again, where was Einstein's lensing experiment verified? Where has it actually been verified that light is bent by gravity? Nowhere. Where has it been verified that black holes exist? Nowhere. Where has it been verified that there is even such a thing as a theoretical concept of a gravitational wave, let alone an ability? Where has it been verified that you can destroy 3 solar masses of mass and convert them into bent space? Where has the converting matter into bent space experiment ever been verified? Judging on these grounds, you, sir, are not a scientific institution, and you are not a scientific authority. Well, I'd say both of your rules, that I have to be an institution or I have to be an authority, have absolutely nothing to do with what people should care about in court. What the jury should care about in court is who has the fucking evidence, who has the fucking argument. And I'm saying physics has been given a free ride to play these ludicrous games, and there's been no authority. The biologists are too confused by the whole thing to even argue it, so they just say, oh, fuck it, okay, whatever you say. Boy, that's really interesting. The other scientists are too intimidated by the math, too intimidated by the fact that they don't want to have to do the learning curve thing to be able to argue this crap. But I'm sure there's plenty of them who are saying, man, that sure does sound like a big pile of goddamn easy bake oven religion. Doesn't really sound like that they got a handle on this thing. The bent space, nothing tells the something what to do. Ooh, sure it does. That explains the force right there, boy. That's such a physical explanation of the force. Yeah, the space just magically does it, then magically causes it, and then magically pushes it, and magically moves it. Oh, space power. So, and the idea of an authority, like I said, is just such shit. So, you know, if you have the fancy lawyer with the fancy reputation, he doesn't have to make an argument anymore. He's just so cool that everybody's just going to say guilty because the lawyer says so. He's such a cool lawyer, he couldn't possibly pick a guilty client. Yeah, no, that couldn't happen. It's not shameful to be wrong. Well, it seems to me it is shameful if you've been arrogant and pompous the whole time you've been wrong. So frankly, I think Feynman shamed himself a bit in being so obnoxious to say things like, well, maybe there's a simpler theory, but me and Einstein can't think of it, so I wouldn't waste any of your time, little retards. I mean, he didn't say exactly, that's a paraphrase, but he just mocked the idea that any of us inferiors were going to stumble on the answer because he couldn't come up with it, and he's really smart. So that's shameful. If you're wrong from that position, from that arrogant position, to be wrong means that yes, that's shameful. But it's shameful to be wrong for a long time and not admit your errors. Well, god damn, fella, where have I committed that error? And clearly, that's exactly the accusation being made. 300 years ago, a guy came up with a particle theory of gravity, and all they did was find reasons not to believe it, not reasons to believe it. They didn't try to make it work, and they just mocked it. And I think that's pretty shameful. And to this day, they mock it so extremely that somebody couldn't even say, if they wanted to say the words Lesage gravity, yes, they're just going to be mocked. It's, oh, you're going to try that again, you silly fucker. You know. So I'm just saying that I didn't even know it existed. I reinvented it and I made it work. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of crow to eat. You have been out there long enough sprouting BS philosophy and BS physics. So you're making accusations now. So now you're coming into the courtroom, you're making an accusation, and what evidence have you going to provide? Oh, that's right. You're not going to provide any evidence whatsoever. You're just going to say it. So I'll just say, you're a pedophile. You've been a pedophile your whole life. It's time to clean up your act, motherfucker. Admit your crimes, go to prison, pay for your crimes as a pedophile, you motherfucking cunt. You know it. You know it in your heart. So quit lying to yourself, quit lying to the world, quit being a fraud, all right? Admit you're a molester. I think it's time for you to retire to an early retirement in your well-beloved woods. Well, again, all this is how a scientist approaches rhetoric. Personal character assassination, mocking a guy's individual life. So I should just make bongo videos of Feynman, all right? So I'll take a bunch of, instead of arguing Feynman's clips, where I let him say his crap and I argue the physics he's arguing, no, I'll just make fun of his speech mannerisms. I'll make fun of his, look at, instead of doing actual physics, this asshole was hanging out in bars playing bongos thinking he was some kind of artist, because that's what he really wanted to be. He didn't want to be a physics. He wanted to be an artist and a celebrity, you know, that kind of celebrity. So I could do that. Should I do that? I'll mock his passions. Well-beloved woods. Well, why don't you go back to your well-beloved bongos, Feynman, and try again? Because clearly you can't do physics, can you? Okay, and leave the physics to eggheads at university departments. Well, obviously the eggheads at university departments can't get their egg head out of their own egg ass and figure out that, well, it smells like shit, it's probably shit. And the fact that the the evidence they have proving photons to be a wave is shit. The evidence that they have gravity bends light is shit. Um, Even, I can go to the aspect entanglement experiment. And I could say, like I said, I spent 1 hour thinking about it, and I think I found where the anomaly in the mathematics is that he didn't account for the fact that polarizing filters sometimes block something that has the right polarization. The jail bars are this way, you throw frisbees through, and sometimes the frisbee hits the bar and doesn't go through. So there's an imbalance in the blocking mechanism of a filter. The filter is biased against good polarization, where it's guaranteed never to let a frisbee going this way through. So it's rock solid on one side, it blocks the good stuff on the other side. That would account for the anomaly in the mathematics. That is the entire aspect experiment. So I've just undone entanglement in 1 hour's work, fuckhead. Perhaps. It could be. And the fact that it could be just amplifies the fact that they're the ones living on assumptions, for fuck's sake. They make 9 million assumptions about what takes place. They assume they can bend, that they can reflect light off a mirror, okay, and the light hasn't changed, that it's not a new photon that leaves the mirror. Do you believe that light can actually bounce off a mirror? That a photon goes in and the same exact photon bounces off? That it actually does bounce? It doesn't have to be absorbed by an electron and re-emitted? What is the truth do you think exists? So when they assume that a mirror perfectly reflects a photon, do you think that actually happens? That photons are perfectly reflected? That the actual photon that hit the mirror is the one leaving the mirror? Do you? All right. I don't want to take from you the only form of communication you have with other human beings. Well, that's just silly. YouTube, but I'd say that you shall stick to philosophy and philosophy only, otherwise you'll just make a fool. Well, again, I would love if you put your reputation on the line. You're saying I'm a fool because I have the balls to make an argument and defend an argument, and you don't, obviously. So who's the fool? The coward like you? The person with no integrity who makes the accusations from behind a rock? Who doesn't put his reputation on the line? I'm saying I can make a fool out of you. I'm saying the facts will make you a fool. As soon as I get you on the witness stand, there's nobody going to be bigger fool than you, fuckhead. All right? Because you're not going to be able to account for any of this bullshit that's been going on in physics. You're not going to be able to explain how your authorities could make such stupid mistakes, how they could lie constantly, essentially lying. They've lied about the two-slit experiment ever since I've been alive. 50 years of lying about what the results indicate, because they keep lying about single slit diffraction. They keep showing the really lame pictures of single slit diffraction when the slit is way too small, instead of showing the diffraction, the interference pattern, when the slit is open as wide as will allow for the pattern to develop. In that circumstance, the two patterns are quite identical. Use the same amount of photons in both experiments, allow the same amount of photons to hit the screen, and you're going to get a pattern that is almost identical except for the central maxima. That's the lie. They keep pretending the two slits matter when we know it doesn't. When somebody who's actually done the experiment and actually analyzed the experiment knows that's not the truth. The two slits have nothing to do with interference patterns. And certainly Huygens is just God of the gaps made up fudge, like dark matter. All right. a fool out of yourself for every person of knowledge. Like I said, if that's what a person of knowledge is somebody who can't make an argument and who just makes accusations and personally assassinates character, then yeah, I don't mind being a fool in your eyes because you're a piece of shit. You're a lousy, rotten, criminal kind of human being. You have no character, no integrity, and no real love for science or the truth. While maybe impressing a few fools with scientific terminology, well, obviously I don't use a whole bunch of scientific terminology. I use a whole bunch of rational terminology and explain how it's pretty damn paradoxical to talk about this kind of nonsense, to talk about fucking photons that have better radar than our United States battleships that take $1 billion to build, and a few misapplied concepts of physics. So you say I misapplied a concept. How did I do that? Where did I misapply? Where's your evidence that I've made a fundamental error in describing the physical truths of the experiments, detailing what happens in the experiments I've detailed? Where have I done the grotesque exaggerating or the grotesque arguing that, see, it's proof. Where did I do that? So, fuck you. That's just bogus. It's just rude and obnoxious. So anyway, there's a couple people commented and said, yeah, where's your argument? So one guy says, argue the goddamn argument. Why don't you just give some arguments? Yeah, so the guy said the same, no good points. He says he's a physicist. I have high degree in physics and I can tell you that this guy has good points. Well, I certainly have some arguments that haven't been countered with anything from any of the critics. So until somebody does demonstrate me to be a fucktard in some way, they've got absolutely nothing. I mean, I've made a ton of claims, and they haven't been able to refute one of them yet. Not one. All right. Let's see. Oh, there's a new one here. Dude asking another dude to respond. Dude, he has interviews with teachers, but not physicists yet. It seems as though he's avoiding the process of contacting someone to interview. I'm not avoiding it. What can I say? I've contacted some of the meaningful talking heads, but yeah, they're not interested, and yeah, so got to bribe somebody. That's what it comes down to. I don't know, what can I say? I mean, it's obviously going to take somebody who's willing to do that. You have to do some research, because the average physicist, frankly, all they remember the two-slit experiment is, some day in the lecture hall and some vague notion that this and that happened. But they have to do the research. They have to spend some time familiarizing themselves with these things to be able to defend them. I mean, you have to look at all the gravitational lensing images to realize that, okay, that one doesn't make much sense, and this one doesn't make much sense because it's in the wrong place. The artifact has to be in the lens, and where they're drawing the lens, there couldn't be sufficient gravity, so you have to do some research to know the truth. There's probably someone he could talk to just down the road. Well, like I said, it's talking to any old physicist won't do. They have to, number one, be willing first. They have to read my stuff and all that kind of crap. And you say that in here, but I'm just saying, this Clifford Johnson, you mentioned someone like Clifford Johnson. I mean, frankly, I don't know why you think this guy is into any kind of the truth, but yeah, I think I did contact him actually. Previously, so somebody else, or maybe it was you, had mentioned him before, but yeah, he's not like a magically brilliant physicist or anything, so I don't know exactly what that's about. He writes blogs. I mean, I don't know. So anyway, I haven't been to his website in a couple of years, so maybe I'll go. I remember I had it linked on my list, and then he made a blog about some kind of silly shit, and I just said, oh, fuck this asshole. So it was something that turned me off pretty strongly. But anyway. So enough of that. So there is some others. Let's see. We've got them on the lensing thing. We got them on the gravitational lensing. We got them on the Young experiment. The gravitational waves are also problematic. Let's see. The aspect experiment. Aspects. Entanglement. All right. Let's see. What other one do I have a problem with? I mean, what other fundamental concept? So we got it's the whole bent space gravity thing is just so I should focus on that and how that just doesn't work as a energy conservation thing. Is stupid. Time as a dimension is silly. It's a function. It's a byproduct. It's not a dimension. Can't be bent. There's no such thing as relative velocity. So relative velocity is a big one. Velocity is in fact absolute. A thing in space has its own velocity. So the matter inside of you, the atoms, are in space. They have their own velocity. The pieces inside the atoms are in space. They have their own velocity. Everything has its own velocity. And it's not ambiguous, or, well, ambiguous is the wrong word. It's real and it exists. So anyway, retard guy, this whatever his name is, missing blah blah plus whatever, the primer field guy. I thought you were going to go away. I mean, not that I'm saying you need to. I just mean that you make way too many comments, and I just don't know what you're defending. Okay, the primer field theory, the electric universe, explains nothing. It provides no explanation. It just says funny words like it's a perturbation. There's no explanation of why two magnets are attracted to each other. They just say it's the ether did it. The ether somehow did it. The lack of inertia, the lack of something everything has to have is a condition of velocity. And then you change the velocity by applying a force. So they say the force isn't made of anything. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, you can be anti-particle, but you still have to have a consistent theory of the dynamic of your fluid. So if you're going to make the universe a fluid, then you're stuck with a huge number of liabilities in terms of friction. Then you can't have a force move through your fluid freely. It just doesn't work. Question on another matter: can you speak about resonance and its role in the universe? Yeah, well, it's a phenomenon of wave mechanics and frequency, and that's all it is. So it just has to do with basically if you're going to have an electron in a tight space, there's a certain bounce rate, okay, that you could say for any ball or something, that would be ideal for the temperature and the springiness of the ball. That means it gets the most compression out of the ball, the most pressure or force, the most blah, blah, blah. And so the ball will bounce perfectly consistently at that frequency. But if you move the frequency a little or change the temperature a little, then you get an irregularity. Then the ball starts to turn or some other thing, or each time it gains a little tiny bit more pressure until it has a big bulge, and then it pops, and then it goes back down and goes back up and goes back down. So those oscillations and consistency. So when you're on resonance, it just means that you're on the measurement is the perfect distance to get the perfect bounce, so to speak. And everything else is just, then there's other ones that are half that or a quarter of that, you can see that the geometry would be consistent, that every 4 bounces, it's back on resonance, or every 2 bounces, it's back on resonance. So that's all. It frankly doesn't have anything to do with this part of physics. Resonance isn't really, I don't think there's anything wrong with conventional notions of resonance beyond when they start applying it through Maxwell to photons. That's just silly. I can see the point of view. Learn to debunk, then you get to learn what we know. I kind of made to unlearn, if you ask me. I kind of made to unlearn, if you ask me. Wow, that's not very helpful. Look, fella, I'm just saying, you believe your mumbo jumbo. You got your God theory of Tesla and his buddies, his long-term defenders. Tesla was wrong. Tesla was kind of a, look, he wasn't a failure because the system was so cruel and mean. He was a failure because he was too stupid to see past his own obsessions. I mean, he never cooked a meal in his life. He wasted money on clothes. He just liked to waste an awful lot of time in restaurants, and or else doing the wackiest physics in the universe, the spectacular. He liked making big noises. He liked blowing stuff up. But I mean, his theory has been long proven inadequate in the sense that you can't transmit energy for free. It requires the opposite reaction problem. For every action, there's the opposite reaction thing. That means if you want a bunch of energy to go that way, you're probably going to have to push a bunch of energy going the other way. It's very expensive, and you have to do something with all that extra energy, that heat. But there's no free lunch. Sorry. There is, but it's in a place where it's really dangerous to try to eat it, okay? The free lunch is breaking atoms because there's a ton of photons inside of an atom. But we obviously know the danger of that, because you let those babies loose the wrong way, they will fuck everybody up. They'll fuck up every electron in their path. All right. Let's see. Do you think resonance will play a major role in RF, resonant cavity thruster? Well, see, again, this is all just so stupid. It's a very inefficient way to transmit fucking energy through radio frequencies. It's just fucking retarded. Any photonic frequency. Laser beams are pretty good, but I'm just saying you're not going to get there at the lower end because the transmission is too sloppy. You're never going to create, I don't think, an efficient way to transmit electricity through the conductors are much better because it's a contained vehicle. It's a structure made for it. You're not going to get rid of the Earth's atmosphere. You're not going to just magically fix that problem. And outside of that, it gets tricky just to herd a bunch of energy into any kind of tube is tricky. All right. So we only view Hangouts, question marks? Darn, this is sad. I ain't downloading Hangout. I don't even know what that means, but who cares? I agree on one thing. He say the virtual mumbo jumbo has to disappear. It isn't good at all. They math till they find a way to work it out, doesn't they? Yep. Blah blah something. Yeah, whatever. You're wrong also. You're doing the same thing. You're sitting there with your magically delicious pile of crap theory, and you don't have any evidence to defend it. And it doesn't even answer the question physically. It doesn't give you a physical diagram of a mechanism. It's just mumbo jumbo. Polarization. There is no polarity. Who says you? Again, you arrogant fuck. One of the universe tool is diode-like system. Well, gee, that's such a goddamn. That's so obvious. The diodes in the system are so obvious. I could see them. They have even the barcodes on them. So easy to see how the universe is made out of diodes. Duh. Oh, gee, how stupid of me. Yes, there's a big diode between me and the sun. I mean, this is just such crap. You people spout this shit complaining about Einstein. At least Einstein didn't do this shit. Diode-like system. What the fuck does that mean, you fucking idiot? It's just so stupid. Me, I challenge any to prove polarity exists. Well, I just look at a battery, jackass. It can't. Universe is too stupid. Diode system is only way it can. See, they're so obsessed with this stupid AC current, and obviously the only thing, diodes become relevant in when there's a frequency, because they only allow one side of the frequency to get through. So there's no reverse, there's no opposite direction. There's just the forward direction. So that, and so that's only way diodes. But they're so obsessed with alternating current that they think anything connected to alternating current, like a diode or a bridge that turns, the bridge that would turn the AC current in a transformer into DC current, is somehow magic, and it has to be something in the universe now. Shit. Where's if we're going to say transistors are in the universe and integrated circuits are in the universe, if you're going to do this idiotic thing of comparing a piece of hardware, tool, electronics, to how the universe functions, then you might as well just tell me what the universe is a TV set. Fucked hard. Now this I agree with Draft. If universe can't understand the scientific, how the heck is normal people going to understand? Again, I'm not really worried about that part of the equation. But frankly, you can make it understandable. I think you can. I don't think physics wants to do that because they don't want to tell. That's why they don't tell the truth, right? I think they know people would understand if they said something like, well, look, the single slit experiment does exactly what this double slit experiment does, pretty much. But because of Huygens, they're really different experiments. Yeah, I think they know the public would say, that smells like bullshit. Is time closely linked with resonance? Obviously, it's linked to frequency, you shithead. I mean, fuck. Just get rid of the words. Get rid of the word wavelength, because that one just causes trouble. There's frequency. And what is frequency? That's the period of time. Period. That's what frequency is. Period of time. The amount of time it takes between impacts. It's full of axiom from David Lapointe. I don't defend it, but I think they are onto something. They're not onto anything, but whatever. You don't defend it? Yes, you do. You just did. The universe is a diode. That's defending it, idiot. Tesla was invisible for 21 years. Where was he when his lab burned? He was in New York, living in the Waldorf Astoria. He wasn't gone anywhere. Nope. Look, Tesla burned all his bridges, okay? Everybody who invested in Tesla gave him millions of dollars, okay? Millions of dollars in currency back then. And every time somebody gave him money and asked him to go do something, like invent the telegraph, he wanted to go make some sort of death ray. I mean, he couldn't stay on the subject ever. So every bit of investment capital he ever got, he fucked it up. And the whole fight with, he did have an in on Westinghouse, but Westinghouse was so obsessed with bankrupting Edison that they bankrupted themselves too, and so Tesla couldn't, retain control of his patents. But frankly, that's all he was. I mean, he did one thing essentially. Took a square motor and made it a round motor, which kind of makes sense, right? Obviously, it would be more efficient to have magnets all the way around, not just on one side and the other. So he took like a high school version of a motor, with two bobby pins and a magnet spinning in the middle, and he turned it into a more efficient motor. But that's it. Well, this lying by omission thing, I don't think Einstein lied. I think Einstein lamented clearly, and I don't think anybody ever really listened to Einstein. But I mean, I think when he lamented that after 50 years of playing with photons, he still didn't know what the fuck they were. I think he was sort of pointing out that, look, people can roll with these theories that I've given you, but they're probably not the truth. But I'm just saying Tesla was wacky. I mean, the whole concept was, look, the idea of an ether, Tesla didn't want to do any of the theoretical work. He wrote nothing. He has no equations. He has no anything to defend this notion that the universe is made of a bunch of stuff being pushed around like a fluid. It just isn't. It doesn't make that argument can be defeated just from the things we know that happen, that you can't do it because you have to turn the friction on and off with some sort of magic. So it magically has friction 1 minute, it magically doesn't the next minute. 1 minute the fluid can be moved, the next minute it can't be moved. I mean, it doesn't have any consistency. Oh, I think both theories are right. You're really losing grip on reality. You really can't combine bent space and ether. Anyway, I'm just saying there's absolutely no value to the Tesla physics because it gives you no working model. It gives you nothing. Like I said, this guy can say hypertroploid forever. He can show you these diagrams of this moving shit that there's no evidence that really exists, but that he says exists. Even if it exists, how does it explain the physical traction and the physical repulsion? He's not explaining what makes it happen. I mean, it's just silly to say no energy outside the atom. I mean, that's just silly. Sorry, it's a silly idea. The photons going from the light bulb to my face and bouncing off and going through this camera is energy outside the atom, jackass. It's not resonance. Resonance isn't a force. Jesus Christ, resonance is a pattern. Resonance is an electron going around an atom, let's say, and it always stopping at 12 o'clock. That would be on resonance. It's a timing cycle. That's all resonance is a timing cycle. And you understand that if the thing went 10 minutes past each time, that after 12 times, it would end up back at the 12 and be back on resonance. So that's all resonance is. It's just the mathematic geometric relationship of a period of a frequency over time, and how that frequency will repeat patterns. If you put certain numbers in, the patterns will keep repeating. That's resonance. I shortened it to put it in context. I'm just saying that Tesla didn't say anything articulate. I'm sorry, he just didn't. I mean, what I've been able to find that he ever said or wrote that you can find, it's all just gooey talk. There's nothing hard stated. And again, every conversation he bent it towards my ultimate beam weapon. He could have beat Marconi to the telegraph. He had the ability, he had the knowledge, and he didn't do it. He got paid to do it, and he didn't do it because he was obsessed with high energy transmission rather than low energy transmission. He didn't do what he was supposed to do. What he got paid to do was create a communication machine, and instead he was trying to create a energy transferring machine. And he failed then, and anybody who's going to try to do it now is going to also fail because the atmosphere is real and it's in your fucking way. And to move the zillions of tons of atmosphere out of your way requires a huge amount of fucking energy. So you're fucked. Okay, use the complete sentence Tesla said. I shortened it to put in context. Well, it doesn't mean, like I said, I don't have it. So if you're composing it, fine. But it's not going to be at all useful. Look, I've done this, link me to videos and I play the damn video. So if I debunk this video, will you shut up? I mean, what's my reward for pointing out how whatever this video is, it's a crock of shit? Because I've already been here and done this before. Okay, this ass wipe's posting me links to documents that are a piece of shit, and I don't win anything by doing it. All I do is waste my motherfucking time. Residents in action. It's not a force, retard. I mean, you keep talking like residence is a force. It's not a force. You idiot. It's a feature. Yeah, again, I'm not doing it without a bargain, okay? The bargain is you admit you're wrong and you're full of shit if I debunk it. I'm not going to do this for the rest of my life. I'm not going to every one of your fucking Jesus stones. Well, why don't you go to Jesus stone? You can see Jesus's fingerprint in the mud. No, I'm not doing that, shithead. It's a waste of my fucking time. I've made an argument, jackass. If you think your motherfucking goddamn photographer kook guy has made a rational argument, he doesn't even do his magnetism experiments in any kind of honest way. The other day, he's dropping his copper plates on there and doing his stupid, oh, look, it doesn't go counterclockwise. Why didn't he flip the fucking magnet over and show how it's exactly the opposite on the other side? Because the truth is, if you try to do something where you make something spin clockwise on a plate, you can do it quite intuitively. It's very difficult to make it go counterclockwise. Even if I put a marble on a plate and I ask you to spin it clockwise, you'll be able to do it much better than if I asked you to go counterclockwise. So even if it was accurate that there is a difference, which there well may be, I'm saying he can't even conduct any experiment honestly. Every fucking experiment he does, he never does it off angle or some other way to actually demonstrate how this thing means something. And it takes actually no sense to realize, why don't I just flip the magnet over and show how it works exactly the opposite way on the other side? So anyway, I'll see what your video is, but I'm sure it's a crock of fucking shit. All right, I'm obviously not going to do it now, but it's shit. Resonance doesn't have anything. It's not a force. It's just a phenomenon of what happens to waves and how they deconstruct when they're going through. Like I said, you can just imagine that if a wave has a sine wave and I put it through a slit that's half as big as the sine wave, that I'll get a certain guaranteed interference that'll be created by the wave having to be not being able to get its full force through the impediment. And then as I vary the size of the impediment, that I'm going to get a different resonant frequency coming out the other end. Duh. All right, whatever. Fuck off, or I'm done with this, okay? You keep making statements you can't defend with anything like fucking evidence. There is no energy in atom. First, there was no energy in space. Now there's no energy in the atom. Fuck you, you're an idiot. What do you think E equals MC squared means, shithead? It means there's energy in the atom. Other than that received from the environment. Again, doesn't make any sense. So where when you blow up a nuclear bomb, jack whack, where the fuck did it come from the environment, fuckhead? Just shut up, go away, I'm done with you, all right? You're talking shit. No, fuck you. Get the fuck off my channel. Stay the fuck off my channel. We're done with this bullshit. I'm sick of your fucking arrogant statements where you make nothing. You make no fucking rational comment. Fuck off. I'm so tired of people wasting my time with their Tesla crap. He proved nothing. He demonstrated nothing. They've demonstrated nothing. The stupid camera guy thinks he can bend light. He thinks something can go faster than the speed of light. These are the claims he makes. And what evidence does he provide to prove he can do any of that shit? He thinks you can bend light with a magnet. He thinks that's possible. Yeah, well, information just means that something has a history. So, in a sense. So, information would be like you could give the biography of Benjamin Franklin's life. And it would be information to say Benjamin Franklin ends up an old man here. Okay, in the end. And the information would be that there's sort of a trail in this old man of how he got every wrinkle and how everything happened. It's all in there somehow because there's only one way he could end up here looking like Benjamin Franklin. There's only one pathway to that. There's a history. So that would be the information. But clearly it's not information, right? I mean, clearly the old man, Benjamin Franklin, doesn't really contain a roadmap of his history. There's only one way he could get where he is, that we could argue through determinism. There's only one path he could have possibly taken to get where he is exactly the way in the condition he's in, right? You can only get exactly there if he exactly took us an exact path to get there. But obviously there's nothing in Benjamin Franklin. You know, if I dug up his bones tomorrow, I'm not going to be able to find the roadmap to the information of Benjamin Franklin. And that's why, you know, this Susskind guy really pisses me off because he keeps playing with this bullshit. He even admits that the information on his holographic black hole can't be possibly read. There's no code book that could ever reread it or redisplay it or redo anything with it, that it's completely valueless information, that it has absolutely no useful way of ever doing anything with it because it's completely indecipherable information. It's not decipherable. And the reason why it's not decipherable is because, you know, they keep bending time so much that they put the past on top of the present on top of the future. And so they think that all this information coexists at the same time. And it's just such a crock of shit. But I mean, that's what they mean by information, is that everything has an exact path to its present condition. There's an exact history that it took to get here. Well, duh. But that's not information carried by me. So they just want to kind of use it like somehow the photon is carrying its history with it somehow. And it's really not. The photon doesn't carry any book like a log book. Oh, I went to Gary's house and I bounced off of the electrons there. And then I went over to Joe's house and I did this. Photons don't have any log book of their adventures.
Hello.
Hello?
Está mi hermano aquí.
Yeah, well, I don't speak Spanish, so that ain't gonna do much good. No habla. Shitty third world country languages.
No diga eso, Sheriff.
Ya, it's a bit.
Están aprendiendo a contar en inglés.
This is America. We speak English. Yeah.
Que toque las maracas.
Yeah, we speak English here.
Yo no sé inglés.
Yes, that's right, English.
Mi hermano están aprendiendo a contar en inglés.
No, I don't doing any of that shit. Good night.
No.
Good night, Gracie. Holy fuck. Vote Trump. I mean, Jesus Christ, who the fuck does this? I'll go to China, right? Let me go find an internet address in China, and I'll go find some Chinese guy talking physics, and I'll go fucking say, hey, how you doing, shithead? Yeah, that's just they talk English at him. I mean, this is such bullshit. These fucking assholes. This is what makes the immigrants so obviously assholey. Like, they can't even figure out. You don't do that shit, retard. You don't go into a room where somebody's speaking English and just start habla in your Espanol. Fuck. Jesus. Anyway, but it was better than holiday, right? Right. All right. Well, it's time to get on with the day and build up my information. Create some more information I can put in my pocket, so I can hologram later when I'm singularitying. I want to be able to hologram properly, so I better, make some more information. All right, so I have no idea if this worked. Video hasn't been working for a while, but anyway, I wonder why. Where's the video? I guess it just gave up on doing video, but it doesn't matter. All right, so yeah, well, all these rooms are always useless. I mean, useful. For it didn't slip, right? Oh God, it is annoying. You got assholes of conventional physics on one side. You have the assholes of Tesla bullshit on the other side of you. I mean, it's just asshole everywhere. The burdens. All right, so anyway, we will see if this will end properly, and till next time and such.